Hi, I'm Kris Albrecht, and I'd like to tell you about a new class that Lisa Wheeler and Ayala and I are going to be doing the first weekend in May. It's actually Saturday, June 3rd, and it's the next offering in our Advanced Infectious Disorders series. So this will be Advanced Level 3. And it's really going to be a collection of our continued evolution. So part of it will be a section on microbes, and part of it will also be about differentiation. So what we'd like to do is give you some techniques to deal with some of those different kinds of microbes that we haven't talked about before. But what we're really looking at with this is really underscoring that idea of the consciousness piece with it, like trying to just get rid of a microbe as a pathogen and wipe something out really doesn't work. I mean, as we know, if you get rid of something, something else is going to come in place. And typically, that's something that is going to be harder to deal with than whatever you wiped out in the first place. So we're really looking at this as a balancing of consciousness piece and balancing the microbes in the body so that you have more diversity in the microbiome so you can really handle whatever comes up. Okay. So some of the things that we're going to be looking at are candida, and we're going to look at the different types of candida. We'll look at when candida co-joins with a virus, and we'll look at candida's biofilms that it can form, especially Candida tropicalis, which is one of the nastier ones from the hospital, tends to form biofilms very rapidly. It can do it in like, but we'll look at those. We'll look at Candida albicans, and we'll also look at access techniques for groin area, pelvic area, and then we'll look at candida specifically as urogenital types, candida in the vagina, the pancreas, sinus system, the skin. We'll look at shredded tissue that can happen as a result from the inflammation. And we'll look at what happens with candida overgrowth after antibiotics. We'll look at candida dominance in the gut. And another thing we'll look at is acetaldehyde and acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is one of the breakdown pieces as candida is being dealt with by the body, and it's very toxic. It's similar to what you have with breaking down alcohol with a hangover. And so that's why a lot of times the symptoms of candida overgrowth can be similar to the symptoms of a hangover. So we'll talk about that too. We're also going to look at funguses specifically like skin fungus, like ringworm, athlete's foot kind of thing. We'll look at also a chlamydia series. And then we're going to look at bacillus. And now with bacillus, actually bacilli are very useful organisms because they produce a lot of enzymes. And especially if you're eating different things, traveling in different areas, if you're in situations where you may be exposed to things that you need to be able to process or specifically to digest, you're going to want to have a nice diversity of bacillus in your system. So we're going to look at, again, balancing that. And we're going to look at balancing bacillus in the breast, and it's been tied to breast cancer when that's out of balance. We're going to look at balancing bacillus in the gut. We're going to look at working with die-off problems in the gut, which a lot of times we know we have Herxheimer's reactions with that. And we're also going to look at the integrity of a ghost appendix. So because the appendix is responsible for giving us immune support and lymphatics for the digestive tract and the abdomen and pelvic areas, what happens when you don't have an appendix? And how can we help to bring back that piece of regulation even if the organ is gone? We also have some techniques for E. coli. We have techniques for Salmonella, Klebsiella, Citrobacter, and MRSA. We're going to be looking at the response of the liver with cholesterol to some of these imbalances. And we'll look at the immune responses for IgA, IgG, IgF with different immunoglobulins. And we've got some energetic phenomena for a spleen plug. So if your body is overrun, your spleen is overrun, we can help to restore the integrity of the spleen. There's going to be some more work on heavy metals. We've talked some about that before, but we really need to do more about that. For instance, cesium, gallium, sulfur, tin, and those are also some of the heavy metals that are involved with the breast hyperplasia piece. So we're going to be looking more specifically at ways to work with those and balance those. and also ways to help remove lead from the gray matter in the brain, from bone itself, lead in conjunction with restless leg syndrome, and a few other techniques for bone. And one thing that is really interesting is when you can get the heavy metal piece out of the bone, it helps to restore the integrity of the mineralization process. So we're also going to look at about 10 different templates and blueprints for osteoporosis and the various flavors of that, and to help, again, shift that mechanism instead of throwing the mineralization out to the kidneys or soft tissue, but bringing that back to the bone where we'd really like it to be. There are a few techniques for viruses as well, for the RSV, for normalizing the ACE2 receptors, especially after COVID. And we can look at those generally. We can look at the GI, the cardiovascular, the renal, the brain, the lungs, the thyroid. So lots of different ways to help rebalance some of the folks that may still be dealing with some of the issues from COVID. We also have a parasite series to help balance any friends that you might have that might be trying to take over more real estate than what you're comfortable with. And then we have one of my personal favorites. We have a lot more differentiators. Remember, differentiators help different tissues in the body know who and what they are. So if you've had a lot of inflammation, if you've had edema, if you've had a lot of trauma and lack of clarity, once we get the individual pathogens back in balance, we want to really get clarity back in the tissues. So we have a whole host of differentiators to offer you. Now, in the past, we've talked about differentiators from a system standpoint, like central nervous system or peripheral nervous system, or lungs or vasculature. But now we've got some more specifics. So for instance, with the brain, we've got the basal ganglia, we've got the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, temporal, occipital, we've got the medulla and pons. We have gray matter, white matter, ventricles. We've got the subcorticals as a group. We have thalamus, hypothalamus. We've got basal ganglia, as I said, the limbic, cerebellum, pituitary, and just the red nucleus also. And along with those, we have some templates and blueprints that go along with those structures. So for instance, with the hypothalamus, once you balance the hypothalamus so the integrity is there, then we can look at some of the function of the hypothalamus, for instance, for satiety and hunger, and helping to balance when am I really hungry, when am I satisfied, to help with appetite modulation. We also have some differentiation for the eye, again, specific for the eye. So we've got the sclera, the retina, the choroid, the macula, ciliary body, the lens, vitreous, aqueous humor, a couple of different ones for the cornea. And then, because again, it's such an issue, we get the integrity back in the cornea. And then we want to work with reducing scar tissue from the cornea, restoring clarity to the cornea. And also for the conjunctiva. Think about all the folks with conjunctivitis or the changes with age that can happen in the quote unquote whites of the eyes. So we have those techniques. And then we did mention before bone. And so we have some differentiators specifically for the bone. So we've got the periosteum, we have the cortical bone, trabecular. We have then also some additional templates and blueprints to help increase the thickness of the cartilage and the cushionings. Think about those situations where you've got bone on bone and the cartilage isn't what it could be. But if the integrity and the layers are back, can we let the cartilage know, hey, we need a little bit more cartilage here, and help to normalize that, as well as decreasing the inflammation of the joint surfaces themselves. We have some differentiators also for connective tissues, specifically skin, connective tissue, muscle, restoring visceral integrity. We also have specific, and yay, I'm so excited about these differentiators for the digestive tract. So that we're looking at the esophagus, the cardiac sphincter, looking at the pylorus, the duodenum, small intestine, cecum, colon, sigmoid. And in looking at those, it's just a way, again, to where we talked about the microbes, we'll get them back in balance, and now we've got their environment to be more clear and more able to be differentiated from each other. So that function for the digestive tract, and we know how important that is for all the other pieces in the body, and to help restore your ability to get what you need. So we are really excited about this particular class and these techniques. And I hope that you are too. I would love to see you virtually on the beginning of June. And it, just like the others, it will be online. So if that day doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. You can always sign up and get it online whenever it does. And you can rewatch it if you need to afterwards. So thank you. It was nice to see you again. And I look forward to being able to see you even more clearly soon. Take care.